let's start from the beginning. The first thing we wanted to do was um, download our template, which I've given you. It's in the content area of Brightspace. So here's the template. It's an RTE file. So we click on it and it is downloading. Okay, so it's totally downloaded. We don't want to open it. It's in our download folder. So and then we go to Revit and we say new. We're going to make a new project, but we're going to use that template that we just downloaded. Now, many of you have already started and you're working on your template. So what you need to do to get into a project is simply wherever you've got your template that you've been working on, follow this similar process. You're just going to start a new project and then use your template. So I've gone to my downloads folder and here's the template that we just downloaded. If you've been working on your template, then that's the template that you would click on right now. So we'll say open, and Revit's now going to start with this template. We say okay, and now I have a project. And that project is going to open up with my template being in the background. All right, it's open. For some reason it opens to the general notes, but now you have your template into your project and you can work on your project and it won't alter your template, so that for the next project you can use that same template, which isn't altered in any way. So the first thing I'm going to do is save my project. Revit wants to know where I want to put it. I'm going to put it in my school folder. And in this class, 2410 fall term. And I'm going to call it, I already have a project one, so I'll just call it class project. And now I own it. So if my computer crashes right now or anything happens, I have saved my project. And it's a good idea to continue to save your project as you're working on it. So let's go to the project browser real quickly. We have all of the drawings and our sheets are already made. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done every single time for a project. We have that already created with our template. So we'll go to the first floor dimension. And the reason I go there is because it has the ability to see the dimension line. So if I'm in first floor arch, for example, I don't think I'm typing VG up to the annotation category. I type the letter D just to see, well, dimensions are turned on. So we would be able to see them here. In this first floor, let's do the same thing and see VG for visibility graphics, annotation category, type the letter D, takes me down, and see dimensions are turned off, just like layers in AutoCAD, but they're families. So we have, if we try to put dimensions into this basic floor plan, it won't work. But it does work in the dimensions. And the reason that's important is because we know that we can move our walls around to satisfy the requirements of the class. And we said we wanted to put in a kitchen. That's one of the first things we're going to do. And so I wanted to do that. So I'm going to make the laundry room down here, but I'm using a dimension to put it in, and 7 feet's probably good for the laundry room. So I click on this object. This is the object I want Revit to move when I tell it I want a different dimension. So I'm going to say 7 feet. I just typed 7, like whatever I did. 7, 7, enter. And so now if you try, which everyone does, to change the dimension by simply clicking on it, Revit won't know, do you want to move this wall or do you want to move this wall in order to achieve that dimension? So we click on the object, which tells Revit, that's the object that I want to move. And then we change our dimension. So I probably want to have a hallway. So I'm going to, this is still highlighted. So I can click the copy command and I can say, I can click anywhere and use my mouse just to show the direction that I want to copy in. And I'll type the distance with my keyboard. So I'm going to say 5 feet. Now let's double check that now with our dimension and see what I want was 5 feet in the middle, but I didn't, in the opening, and I didn't get it. So again, click on the object I want Revit to move, click on the dimension. I want my hallway to be 5 feet. So the rest of this is going to be my kitchen. So I might want a little bit more space in there because I might also want to have a breakfast nook. So I just push that wall back. I can move it either way, back and forth, but I'll worry about that later. So now I'm going to use reference planes in order to identify the layout of the cabinet. So architecture tab, reference planes. I want to draw a line on the computer screen, but I want Revit to draw the line 2 feet away from where I drew that, because that would be the width of a countertop. So in the bar here, we have an offset. I'm just going to type 2. So now when I draw a line from here, we'll take it all the way back to here. It draws a line that's 2 feet away, but notice it's drawing it on this side, and that's not the side I want. So I hit the space bar and then click, and it's drawn that reference plane 2 feet away. And then I say, well, let's have 5 feet in the middle. So I select the object and I say copy. And now I can just say 5, and I've put in another reference plane that's 5 feet away. I'm going to copy that, and this is my island, and I want it to be 2 feet wide. And then I'm going to highlight that, copy 5 feet. And then I know that the wall will be 2 feet away from there, so I'll just copy it 2. And I know that this wall, there will be a wall here, but I'm just laying out my countertops. This wall obviously is going to have to go a little bit farther. And let's look at the constraints on this wall. Where does it start? At the first floor. Where does it stop? What's the top constraint? Well, we can't quite read it all. We could hover over it. It should pop up. Up to level, top of first floor wall. So my constraints are good. If I right click on top of that and say create similar, it will put a wall. I'll put it in the center. That's not where I want it to be. So I'll just draw it anyway. And then I'll use the align tool, which is right here, and I will align to this. That's where I want that wall to be. Then we have this tool, which in AutoCAD is fillet, but Revit calls it trim extend. So I'm going to fillet or trim extend, and I've cleaned that up. And then I'll just drag this back for now to this wall. Okay, now I've started to lay out my kitchen. I do need another countertop here. So architecture tab, reference plane. My offset is 2 feet. And let's draw that from here. This time it put it on the correct side, which is good. And then I can just copy this 5 feet. And I've got my, this will be a countertop. This is a countertop. This is a countertop. And this is an island. And let's make that island 8 feet. So I'll just copy that up 8 feet. And now I have my island laid out with reference planes. I know that I'm going to need to get from the back hall into the kitchen. So I don't think I want a countertop here. I want it to be L-shaped here, but straight here because I'm going to need to walk through there. So let's make a countertop. Architecture tab. We go over to the component, but we do the drop down at the component and say that we're going to model in place. We need to put it in a family category. I put it in casework. And Revit gives it a name, casework 1, and that's fine. I leave it at that. Now, what are we going to do? We're going to do an extrusion. With an extrusion, we need to provide the perimeter and the thickness. So the perimeter will draw, but the thickness will define over here in the constraints. The reference plane that it's working from is the first floor. So I want my countertop to be 3 feet above the first floor, and that will be the top of it, and the bottom of it, this is an extrusion countertop, 2 feet 10 inches. So that means that my countertop will be 2 inches thick, and it will start at 3 feet tall. So now I'm going to draw that. I'll use the rectangular tool up here, click here, and come all the way down to here. And now I've created the perimeter with a magenta line. I've told it what the height is and the thickness. And here's the material. Now, probably it's defaulting to cherry. Probably wouldn't use cherry, but in the real world, but for purposes of this class, we will. If we wanted to change it, we just click on it. There's a little 3 dots that pop up. And that gives us our library of materials. I have made a material that I like. It's a green marble. So I typed in the search, show me everything, all the materials that have the word green in it. And I have this great new green marble. Double click on that. That becomes the material now. And I'm going to hit the green check mark. And I'll hit it again. And now I've put that countertop in there. Let's do consistent colors. Now I have a green countertop in there. I'm going to put a camera in just to see what have I done. Now, my quick access toolbar is below the ribbon. Yours might be above. If you have it above and you want it below, then you can click that little down arrow here and change it. But I want it to stay where it is, so I'll leave it there. Yours is above the ribbon, that's fine too. I want to take a picture just to show you what I've done. So we will put a camera right here, and you can see what I've done. So I have my wall. This is the basement. We don't have a floor in the kitchen yet, so that's the countertop. We'll go back to the first floor. Not that one. We'll use that one. No, we're using dimensions, so I'll close that one down too. They're just different views. So that looks good. Now I'm going to do the same thing here, and then I'll do the same thing here. I know that I'm going to walk from this part of the kitchen into this room, so I won't take my countertop all the way up there, but we can modify its exact location later. Let's do the island first, then we'll do this L shape. Architecture tab, go to the component icon, but view the drop down, model in place. Again, casework, it's the family category. And now it says casework 3. I want to draw an extrusion. Did it default back? Yes, look at that. The height and the depth and the material stayed the same. So now I can draw a rectangle from this guy over to that guy and say, okay. And say, okay. Now let's go back to that 3D view. Now you can see, we can stretch that out. This is the camera view, but now you can see I've put another countertop in there. Use consistent colors. It's starting to show it a little bit better. Countertop, countertop. It gets confusing to view it this way without the floor in. I don't recommend putting in the floor till you're sure that the walls are exactly where you want them to be. Because if you put a floor in and it's related to this wall, you can lock it. I don't recommend that. Meaning that you could lock your floor to this wall so that when you move the wall, the floor moves too. I prefer to get the wall in correctly first. I think it's all right, but I'm not sure. So now we're going to put this guy in, architecture tab, over to the component icon, but the drop down, model in place. Again, I just put it in casework. Now this Revit's named it casework 4. You can call it whatever you want. I don't see any value the way that I work in giving those names anything other than what Revit wants them to be. Again, extrusion, just double check that the extrusion end and the extrusion start are still the same heights and the material is the same. This time I can't draw a rectangle, I'll just draw lines. I'm snapping, and here I'm not going to go all the way to the wall because I know that I'm going to move it in a second. But let's say okay, and let's say okay. And if I want to move this wall, I can just highlight it, and there's a grip here, and I can move it down wherever I want it to be. Now I put my countertops in. So that looks pretty good to begin with. General notes, I'm going to close that down. My 3D view, I'm going to close that down. And I'm going to come over here to my sections. It's minimized, so I have to hit the little plus. And I have stacked walls and families, so let's look at that. I'll double click on that. These are all of the stacked walls that I have. So when I need a different type of stacked wall, I've already got them all made. But I also have my library. I saw a different video demonstration by another person did a good job. He calls it his warehouse, but he makes a separate file with his warehouse, and it's kind of a good name too. But I have it in the same drawing. I find it a little bit easier. So here are all the objects. I've got a stacked washer and dryer. I've got a stove, a range hood, a refrigerator, I've got a pantry cabinet. I made a cabinet that has 2 ovens and a microwave in it. I also have a base cabinet that has a microwave in it, a microwave drawer. Very expensive compared to regular microwaves, but it's a nice feature. And so I have my base cabinets, and I have another big pantry cabinet, upper cabinets, drawers, cabinet. And these are all drawers. This is a drawer and a cabinet. So those are my options there. If I type WT, it toggles my drawings. So what I want to do, for example, is let's put a base cabinet underneath the island. So I just right click on top of that object and say create similar. And then I come over here and click anywhere, and there's that cabinet. Now, if we look at it, we see that the arrows to flip it, what that does is it flips the hinge, and if I click this, then it flips the object so that the face of it is on this side. This is always indicating the face of the cabinet, but I want the face of the cabinet on this side, so I have to rotate it. So I simply hit the rotate. It snaps to the midpoint of the object. If we wanted to place that rotation point someplace else, then we would hit this place button, and I could place my my center of rotation there. But basically, it can stay where it is. Let's place it back where it is, just to not be confused. So that's back to there. Now, I can click anywhere and use the mouse to show the direction that I want that cabinet to be rotated. And I know I want it to be rotated 90 degrees. So I just type 90. Now it's rotated that object. It's not in the right spot, but it's looking pretty good. So I want to move it back. I can move it by eyesight, but I prefer perfection, so that it's perfect. The precision is perfect. So I'm going to say align from the, and click on this edge of the countertop, or it's the reference plane. I don't know. I picked one of those two. And then over here, there's a little line there, and I click on that. So now I have it in the right location. I'm going to hit the save button and stop for a second because I don't have any section lines showing in this drawing. So now let's go back to find a different floor that has the section lines in it. This one does. Okay. So I'm going to close my dimension for a moment and take a look at the kitchen this way. Well, look at what we have. I can't see all of my house that I've drawn now. Down here, it shows a crop region, and it's the light bulb is turned off. So I click that and it turns it on. I click on the edge of the crop region. Revit will only show what's inside of the crop region when you have the command to crop the view. Now, if I toggle that and I say don't crop the view, then it will show me everything. And what we're looking at for our stacked walls and in our cabinets and stuff are all over here. If I say crop the view, then we can only see the things that are inside of that crop region. And we'll just pull this down a little bit, but I don't want to see the crop region. So I'm going to click this button again and say, hide the crop region. The reason that I switched views, floor plans views, is that I want to see my sections. So if I pull this up a little bit and I right click on this and I say, go to view, now I can see that cabinet in that island. That's what it looks like. Do I want the hinge on this side or do I want it on this side? I think I want it on the other side. So we go back to the first floor. We're looking for that. And this is going to switch it. So when we go back to my section view, now you can see that the hinge is on the other side. That's what that arrow does. I want this cabinet to be on the edge of the island, but I'm seeing this guy in the background. I don't want to see that. If I click on this dashed line, which is way too low, shows me the depth of field of that section. So if I pull this dash line back to here, it won't, the section will only show back to this point. So we go back to that section again. And now you can see that I can't see that countertop in the background, but I can see the island edge, which is what I want to align this cabinet to. Okay, look at that. All right, well, let's say I want to put another one in. I can copy it over or I could mirror it. So let's try mirroring. Here's our mirror icon. So I click on that and I've already selected the object. So Revit wants to mirror that. And I'm going to draw an imaginary line, which will be the point which that object mirrors around. And now I have a second one in there. And it's got the hinge. It mirrored that. So on this one has the hinge on the left. This one has the hinge on the right. Okay. And what are we going to do? Let's put some drawers in there. So I'll go back to the first floor plan and I will click on this drawer and say create similar. And I'll just simply put that. And if I hit the space bar, it rotates around. I can't tell which is the front though, because I don't see those arrows yet. So let's put it right there. And sure enough, the arrows are on the back, which means that the face of those drawers are on this side. If I click this arrow, now the face of the drawers are there. We'll pull this guy back just a little bit. And then we will align that one to there. And then we will align. We're clicking, I'm using the align tool. I'm going to click on this dash line of that cabinet and then the dash line of that cabinet. Back to the, now look what I've done. I put that in there. Maybe I want to put two drawers in here and I want to fill up this space. So what we're going to do is measure how much space I have. So I have from this, I have 4 feet. So I want each one of these drawers to be 2 feet wide. If I click on this drawer and then I click on this properties image, I have, right now it's 15 inches, but I want 24. So I'll simply click on 24. And Revit has put in a 24-inch cabinet there instead. Now I have the object highlighted. I'm going to use the arrow key just to nudge it over. I'm not trying to do it by eyesight. I want precision, so I click the Align tool, and then I have that lined up exactly. And I know I want another one. Highlight the object, go to Copy, and copy from where? I want to copy from here to here. Now you could do it by eyesight, but you wouldn't have the precision. Now we have this beautiful thing. I like my work. I'm going to click the Save button, which is always a good idea to do. And we've put in to the island. It's a 4 feet wide island. So if we go back to the floor plan, no, it's a 2 feet wide island. So that's fine. All of those drawers are on underneath this island. Now I want to put in well, this room, we could change this now too, jumping around quite a bit. But this room right here is, we'll change the name of it simply by clicking on it. And now that's my kitchen. Okay. Because that's really what that room is. All right, let's put in the refrigerator. Let's go over here and see where the refrigerator is. Right click, create similar. We'll click, and you can see the front of it's at the bottom. So I click the space bar twice, and I just put it in. Not too worried about its location right now because I'm going to move it. Hit the Modify tab to clear out any kind of command, and I'm just going to use this move to go from this corner over to that corner. Now, if you look at the island or the countertop, now it's going through the refrigerator, but I just grab that grip and take it over to there. So I put my refrigerator in, I've put my island in, and I would like the sink to be on this wall. I want a window in front of that wall with that sink, but I want it centered on the island. So let's see what we have to do here. Architecture, reference plane. Let's see if we can snap. Just like AutoCAD, it snaps to the midpoint, which is the triangle. And I'm just going to put a reference plane in here. Then I don't have create similar ability. Maybe I do, but I'm going to do it a different way anyway. We're going to say, we're going to the Insert tab. No, Architecture tab, Component. And now we're going to click the drop down here, and let's search for sink, S-I-N-K. What sinks come up? Everything with the word sink in it comes up, and I want just this sink. This sink looks good, a kitchen triple. And I want to put it in here. See if I can hit the space bar and rotate it. I want it to be centered on that reference plane. So I just put it in there. So it's kind of got a little space behind it and in front of it, which would be the countertop. And then again, I will use that Modify tab and go to Align. This is what I want to align to. So I click on it first, and there is a center line of the kitchen sink. Boom. Now I have my kitchen sink in there too. Hit the save button. But remember I said I wanted the sink centered on the island, but I want a window in front, and look what I've got. That's not good. So let's grab all of these things with a window, and I'm just going to move it 10 feet in this direction. And I get a little error message, but that is okay. Unjoin elements is fine. So now maybe 10 feet was a little bit too much, but maybe not. I got some weird stuff going on here that I'll have to clean up later, but we're working on the kitchen. And so I can move, it's digital ink. I can move any object anywhere I wanted. I could have grabbed the whole house and moved it back so that that was clear. I think 10 feet is too much. So if I move it down, let's measure using the measuring tool. If I just move this guy 3 feet, 4 feet, if I move it 4 feet, I think I'll be okay. Let's see what I've got right here. Well, let's take this wall and drag it down so we don't get that mess that we had before. Can't see it. Why? Well, the crop region isn't visible, but it's saying only show the things inside of the crop region. So I had to make the crop region a little bit bigger. I'll turn that off again. And now I'm going to move this guy down 4 feet. Just grab everything, move 4. That's better. So now I will be able to put a window in front of the kitchen sink, and the garage won't be in the way of that window. All right, what else? All right, so we have a sink, refrigerator, we have some base cabinets. We need a stove. Let's take this. This is a really nice range here. It's a cooktop and a stove. Let's say right click, create similar. I want to put that over here. I just clicked on the screen to activate that view. And then let's put it in right there so we can get some precision. Instead of putting it in by eyesight, align to the back of the wall, to the back of that. Align. We want to align to what? The midpoint. Okay. Looks pretty good. Except for the fact that this countertop is now going through the cooktop. Oh, I got it in the wrong spot. I wanted it aligned to the center line here. Oops, my mistake. And I don't see that midpoint reference plane anymore. Architecture reference plane. We're going to snap to the midpoint. We'll snap. Then I'm having trouble locating the midpoint right now. So I'll just come over here. I know there's a center line of the sink, which is also what I want. There we go. And now I will use the Align tool. It's in the Modify tab with the Modify ribbon. Clicking on the Modify tab brings up the Modify ribbon, Align, and here, and then I click to there. Now again, as I was saying, the countertop is going through that stove, so I will grab this. I highlight the countertop, and then I just bring it back down to there. Now I wanted a countertop over here too. I don't have one. Let's try doing it the lazy way. That's a countertop. Copy from where? From this corner to where? This corner. Now we just put in a countertop over there, but it's too wide. So I can use the grip and drag it back right to that, and maybe drag it up a little bit more there. Let's change to consistent colors, just so you can see what we have. I have my sink. I put some base cabinets in. I have my refrigerator. I have my stove. Let's put this guy in. Create similar. I highlighted it, right-clicked on top, create similar. By clicking in this screen, I've activated that view. I see I'll just put it right there, because I want to use the Align tool to get the midpoint correct. And then I will use the Align tool for the edge of the wall to get it exactly where I want it to be. Now let's take this section line and drag him over to here. What does that look like? Well, you can see what I've done now. I have my range hood and my stove right there. And now might not be a bad time to take a picture. What do we got going on here? I like the 3D because sometimes you do work in plan view that you think is correct, but it turns out that it's not quite correct. So that's what we have. Let's do it in realistic this time. It'll take a little bit longer to process, but it'll look a lot better. And there it is realistically. Look at that. There's my what I've done so far quite quickly. And then we'll put some more base cabinets in. But what we want to do next is cut let's take a look at that. That's a good thing to look at. Let's take a new camera and put it in over here and take a look on this in this way. Now you can see, we'll do this one in consistent colors. And I'm going to rotate it just a little bit. You can see that the countertop goes right through the sink. So this sink doesn't work right now. What we need to do is cut a hole, and that's what they would do in real life, is they would cut a hole for this sink. So let's do that. Save it quickly. And switch back out of consistent color because it's easier to see in hidden line what I'm doing. So now we're going to cut a hole in this countertop. So let's see, let's start with, what do we want to cut? Architecture. We're going to go component, drop down, model in place. Again, we'll call it casework. Casework 6, they're naming it, Revit's naming it. Now, what do I want to do first? I don't want to do an extrusion. We've already covered that, but I do want to do a void. So we'll take a void extrusion, and we're going to use the rectangle or the tool, and I want to draw a rectangle that's slightly inside of the kitchen sink and slightly inside the kitchen sink. That's the size of the hole that they would cut in the countertop. They wouldn't cut it at the same size as the kitchen sink, because then when they put the kitchen sink in, it would fall through the hole. So they make the hole slightly smaller so that the kitchen sink can rest. The lip of the kitchen sink can rest. Now, this kitchen sink would come with instructions on what exact dimension this opening should be, but we can do it by eyesight right there. So we've said, okay, that's the perimeter of it. We'll accept that with the green check mark, and then we'll say cut. So it may have already cut it. Let's see what happens if we, yeah, I might have done something wrong here, which isn't bad. I want to cut, I did do something wrong. I don't know what I did wrong, so I'm simply going to X out of it and start over again. I want to, well, maybe we need to edit in place first, then create the void form. I think that's the error that I made. So it's just like flying an airplane. When there are crashes, usually it's operator error. And in this program, when it doesn't work the way you want it to work, it's not because Revit's not working. It's generally an error by the operator. All right, let's say okay. Let's say cut. And I think it did cut it this time. Finish. And let's look at it in 3D. Sure enough, it did. So that countertop, well, let's hide this. So if I click on this object and then I come down to the eyeglass, I can click on that and say hide element. Well, I hide category, same thing. And now you can see the sink is hidden, but you can see the hole that we cut in the sink. And go back to the eyeglasses and say reset temporary hide, and it brings it back. So now we have our kitchen sink, and we need to put a different type of a base cabinet underneath that sink. So I'm going to right click on top of this. This is a base unit for the sink. Create similar, click once in here to activate the view. I'm going to put that over here and then move it in place. So I saw that the arrows are there. I've selected the object. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Then I'm going to use the align tool, find the center of that and the center of that. And then I will align to here and to there. Let's see what we did. Well, if I look at this section, The arrow is pointing to the right, which means it's showing me what's on the right. I will click on this, and there's a little arrow right here, flip section. And now I'm going to pull this over, right click on top of it and say go to view. And now I can see what I did there. I have my base cabinet and I have my sink on top of it. All right, we'll do a couple of upper cabinets and then everything else basically is just repetitive. So let's put an upper cabinet on both sides of the sink. Which upper cabinets do we want? Well, let's use these. Create similar. The upper cabinets are wall base, which means that you have to select a wall to put the cabinet on. Can't put it in the middle of the room. See the little can't do it symbol? So we'll put it here. Now we'll go back to that view, right click, go to view. There it is. I want it. I want these cabinets to line up with this one. So align here and here. I know there's going to be a window in the middle, so I will click on this guy and say mirror, but this time I'm going to use this, which is looking for a midpoint line. Find that midpoint, there it is right there. On the other side. Now when I put the window in, the window might be wider than this, so I might have to move my upper cabinets. But let's go back to our 3D view. You can see what I've done. To put in base cabinets, to put in upper cabinets. 3D view 2. There's the other side. I've got my sink, my refrigerator, my stove, my hood. So that all looks good. I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to render this. Maybe not this one. Let's go back to here. Let's take a view right here, right from the middle. So it kind of shows what we've got. All right. So that looks pretty good. I do have a ceiling in here, I think. Let's go to consistent colors. Yeah, there is a ceiling there. So there's not a whole lot of light coming into this space. So if I render this now, it would be pretty dark because there's no light. There's no artificial light using lights, and there's no windows. So there's not a whole lot of light coming into that space. So I'm not going to render it yet, but I'm going to stop here. And that's a good example of how to start laying out your kitchen.